welcome to this episode of Joy's World, the podcast. Today, I have another very, very special guest. He is a presenter. Well, I know you as a presenter, and I know that you love sports, and we're going to get into that as well. Please welcome Nick Bright.
Yes, Joy. Yes. What's going on?
I'm sorry, Nick. This isn't the BBC. I don't have sound effects. It's just got to be my voice. I apologise.
That's fine. Like making your own jingles. Like that's what I'm saying. Making your own jingles and sound effects is fun anyway. So
100%. Nick, so my first question to everybody that I interview is always the same, and it is, how are you feeling today? And you don't have to just be like, I'm all right, I'm fine. You can be honest. Like, are you pissed off? Are you angry? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you horny? How are you?
Wow, I wasn't expecting the last one. I'm not going to lie.
No, it be's like that, Nick.
Trust me, I'm here for it. I'm here for the real talk. But I'm not that at the moment. But yeah, I'm just I'm okay. You know, I'm a little bit fed up with the way the world is at the moment. You know, I'm sure you are as well, and everybody else, because you know, we just want to kind of get on with some semblance of normality. You know, we're not expecting it to be exactly how it was, you know, not right away anyway, but the whole time we're all just locked up in our houses, man. It's enough to send you a little bit crazy, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening with me a bit. And plus I'm having building work done, really boring stuff, but I'm having building work done in the house at the moment, so sorry if anybody hears any of that, but yeah, there's just like kind of no escape from these four walls a little bit. But other than that, you know, everything's same.
I mean, Nick, when I had builders, like when I was growing up in my mum's house, there was a Polish builder. He was called Igor, and I'll never forget him because I loved him. I absolutely loved him. I mean, not that you're going to fall in love with your builders, but I'm just triggered a memory for me. You know?
I love it that it's stuck with you, man. Like Igor, just like stuck in your mind. But our guy's called Damien, so you know, he's doing his thing as well.
I like that name though.
Yeah,
it's
smashing
nice
it.
Yeah. Is he youngish, single?
What, are you trying to get in there? You want me to have a word?
Why not? Do you know what I mean, Nick? Nick, I've got to find a husband by any means necessary. So
I absolutely love that. Well, you know, next time I pop in the kitchen for a cup of tea, I'll have a word, see what you're saying.
Or maybe I bring him a tea.
Well, I mean, you're not here. I'd be up for that, but you know.
I'll make him a cake, Nick. Don't worry. Right. Nick, can you describe yourself in 3 words?
I'll try. 3 words, right. Hair. Do the words have to reel off of each other, or can it just be any 3 words?
Whatever 3 words come to your mind at this moment, that's it.
All right. Hair, chatty, and trainers, because if you could see, like right there, I've basically got like floor to ceiling trainers.
Really?
Yeah, it's an issue that I've got. There's more trainers over here. Ugh.
How many trainers do you have altogether?
Got these ones here. I've got like probably about 160 pairs of trainers. Much to my other half's dismay, she cannot stand it, as you can imagine, because when you've got builders in doing work and it's like costing loads of money to have that done, it's like another pair of trainers shows up at the door. So yeah, that's not the one.
Wow. What are your favorite trainers?
That's a good question. Classics for me, not Reebok classics. I mean like Nike Air Max 90s or Air Max 1s, probably my favorite 2 silhouettes, but also I quite like the Yeezy 350s. I'm into those. You into trainers yourself, Joy?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. Not particularly, but and however, right, I've always wanted to get a nice pair of trainers. I saw some online. I wanted to get some Jordans.
Yeah, I've got a few pairs of Jordans up there. Yeah,
they're expensive, Nick. Okay, and also I bought myself some Beyonce Ivy Park trainers. Yeah. For £130, Nick. I got them. They were white. It was the winter. I was like, Joy, what was it? I sent them back, Nick. I sent them straight back.
Yeah.
But in the summer, you never know.
that's the thing. White trainers, I very rarely wear them because in this country, you don't even know if it's going to rain or not. It could be like blazing sunshine outside, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to bust out the white ones, and then next thing you know, it's tipping down with rain and they're ruined. So I don't wear white ones that often. It's mad because I've got all these shoes, Joy, and like I probably wear about 4 pairs heavily in rotation, and then the other ones hardly ever. There's so many that have never been worn,
Would you
mainly
ever
the
sell them?
Jordans. Yeah, I mean, I would, but equally, like I feel like it's a bit of an addiction. Like I like collecting them. You know, like some people like collecting, I don't know, stamps or Pokemon cards or whatever. But like for me, unfortunately, mine is much more expensive than that. In that it's flipping trainers.
Okay. I mean, I just bought myself some like, I wanted some like everyday trainers, and don't judge me, Nick, but somebody told me, so when I was in school, right,
Yeah.
Fila was like dead trainers, okay?
Right. Okay.
But somebody told me, my brother-in-law to be specific, he told me that shitty trainers from the past are now in. So can you just confirm or deny, is this true? Like, am I going to look like an idiot walking around in Fila?
I think it depends, right? So you
That
definitely
means yes, Nick.
you won't look like an idiot walking around in Fila because retro drip is coming back. Your brother-in-law is right, but it depends exactly what it is. Because I've seen when I was growing up, you know, I don't know the difference in age between you and I. I'm assuming you're younger than me because nowadays everybody is. But when I was growing up, like high tech trainers were the dead ones. Like if you had high tech at school, it wasn't a nice time, put it that way. But now I've seen certain shops stocking high tech and like pushing it on Instagram and being like, "Oh, get these retro high tech trainers," and I'm like, "Stop trying to gentrify my childhood." I went through just agony telling my parents, "Please, please, mum and dad, don't get me the high techs, please." And now it's like you're trying to charge £200 for a pair of high tech. What is this?
It's mad.
Wild.
It's actually mad. It's mad. But if you ever do want to sell any of your trainers, let me know. I mean, I don't know why you would let me know, but
I
let
was
me
going to
know.
say, I doubt we're the same size. I mean, we could
What
be.
size are you, Nick?
Well, considering I'm 6'3", I've actually got really small feet, believe it or not. But that doesn't mean what you think it means, by the way. I've been told. But
Allegedly.
I'm
I
a,
won't know.
yeah,
We need to
I'm a,
ask the partner.
I'm a size 8. So I haven't got the biggest foot.
Okay, but if you want to do like a giveaway, we can do that right here on the podcast. If anyone wants a pair of Nick Bike trainers, just let me know. I've got the hook up now.
I mean, Joy's already decided it, but you know, I'll have to speak to my people and get my people to speak to your people. You know, get the legal team on it.
Okay, we'll do that. But that means no, guys, by the way. That means no. Nick, talk to me about radio. So obviously I know you from One Extra. I've been listening to you on One Extra. But I know now you do a lot of other things. You do sports stuff. Talk to me about radio. And I know that you kind of got into radio when you was like in your early 20s. Do you feel like it's easier or harder to get into radio now?
Oh, it's such a tough question to answer because I feel like now there's more routes in to radio. You know what I mean? Like before, the only way in was get involved with a radio station, really, and that was it. I mean, you could get in if you were going down the specialist music route. You could be a big DJ in the clubs and stuff like that, and then get in that way. But really, the only way to get in before was by being a presenter on a radio station, whether that's a commercial station already or a community radio station or hospital radio, student radio. Those were the only ways you could get in. Whereas now, you know, a lot of people get picked up off of YouTube or off of TikTok or off of, you know, just different social media things. And that for me, in terms of youth broadcasting and an entry point, that for me is a good thing because it gives everybody more of a level playing field. Because to get involved with radio before, as I say, you had to be doing it, and to be doing it, you need there to be a local facility wherever you live, whether that's a hospital radio, whether you went to uni to do student radio or whatever. If you didn't have that, the access was really, really limited, and I didn't really have that myself, so I had to kind of move to go to uni to make sure that I was involved in the radio industry to then get in. Whereas, like, you know, now, like you said, Joy, you know, you do YouTube and stuff like that. you know, that's all you got to do now. You know, but you can get discovered from some of the fun and cool shit that you're doing on YouTube, and then, you know, who knows, you can be on the radio this time next year. You could be doing a show on the radio. You just don't know.
I mean, speak it into existence, Nick. And this is what brings me on to my next question, because your boss, Mr. Farron McKenzie, the head of One Extra, I'm trying to get in touch with him. So I'm just saying, if you accidentally forward him the links to this podcast, then do you know what I mean? I mean, then it's fine.
I absolutely love it that you've called Farron out, first name and surname on the podcast. Look at that.
It's Mr. McKenzie to me. Do you know what I mean? Utmost respect. Do you know what I mean? Just saying.
Yeah. No, Farron's a good guy. To be fair, you know what I mean. He's new in the job. You know, I've been at One Extra for a long time. I worked in production before I was a presenter there. So in my time there, I've seen like Wilbur was in charge of One Extra when I first started, and then Ben came in, and Andy was a guy called Andy was in charge before that, and you know, now Farron's come in, and he's kind of approaching it with different energy. He's very down to earth, very approachable, chats to all the DJs on a level which, you know, I really like, because, you know, I can find, this is just in all aspects of life, not just as a radio presenter, you know, whatever job you do, nobody likes an unapproachable boss. Do you know what I mean? Somebody who's difficult to speak to, or like when they're around you feel on edge. You know, nobody likes that. Whereas Farron, he doesn't want to bring that. The hardest thing is, of course, because it's a pandemic, you know, basically Farron's taken over, and it's been like this for the whole time. So we've not really been able to properly chat, but you know, the Zooms and stuff that we do are always good vibes. So, you know, I'm very excited to see kind of where One Extra goes in the next little while, man.
Yeah. Do you feel like there is still a place for radio? Because, you know, podcasts and YouTube is so, you know, it's so popular now. I think I have heard that kind of conversation where it's like, is radio dying out? What do you think about that?
So I think there's most definitely a space for radio still. It's changed. The goalposts have changed, and the media landscape, as you rightfully point out, has definitely changed as well. But in terms of, let's use the pandemic again as an example. I hate to keep going on about the pandemic because I want to forget about it, to be honest, but it's kind of what we're all living in at the moment. When the pandemic first hit, people wanted news. They needed news, right? So the radio gives you that, but equally, they want that news, but they also want to forget at the same time about the realities and the hardships of life. So One Extra, for example, will give you 2 minutes of news an hour. You know, we go to Newsbeat, we'll give you 2 minutes of news an hour, so you get the headlines, you get the stories, you get up to date with everything that's going on, and then we can just get back to the tunes. You know what I mean? Get back to the games and the features and the tunes. But equally, it's a balancing act. You know, if something really kind of dark and depressing and upsetting is happening in the world, you don't want to just be all like, everything's roses on the radio, you know, we're just having a laugh, blah blah blah. You have to get in tune with your audience and be reflective of, you know, what they're going through, because it has been a tough time for everybody. But I think podcasts are an amazing thing. They totally do their thing. Streaming, also amazing. But radio, and predominantly kind of music radio, I'm talking about when I say this, there's still a space for it, because it's a middle ground. Some people want to listen passively, don't they, Joy? You know, like sometimes you don't want to turn on the radio and listen with intent. You know what I mean? You just want the person on to make you laugh sometimes, play some tunes or whatever, and while you're doing the housework, or you could be driving somewhere or whatever. And I think that's what radio does, and does really well. Speech radio, that's a different kettle of fish altogether, because, you know, speech radio has to be, the content is all what you're talking about, so it has to be informative, entertaining, you know, for the whole time. And I think speech radio, although there are podcasts, they can't react to speech radio live in the same way, because, you know, we use Joe Rogan as an example, you know, one of the most popular podcasts in the world. Smashes it, you know, it's a great podcast if you like that kind of thing. But then equally, you know, if a big news story breaks, for example, or, you know, God forbid, there's some kind of terrorist attack or anything like that, you know, you're not going to go to a podcast to get information on that. You know, you're going to switch on the radio or the TV, you know, but the radio is so quick and so easy to sort things out, because even telly, they've got to get sound people down there, camera people down there, you know, presenter down there. Whereas radio, man, it's like you can go down there with a telephone and then the person in the studio can just like call you and then you're on, you know, to the nation. So in terms of how reactive and how kind of instant it is, I don't think it's replicated, not yet anyway, but you know, that may change. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I think as well, like with radio, what I like about it is the fact that it kind of helps you with your routine and your schedule. So you know when you wake up in the morning who's going to be on, when you come, you know, when you finish the school run or whatever, you come back, you know who's going to be on, and you can always tap in and tap out. So I feel like there definitely is a place for radio. And I think as well, it's good that, you know, we have things like BBC Sound where you can also then just listen back to a show as well, like if you missed it or whatever. So I feel like that is really important as well. Working for such a big organisation, the BBC, what I want to ask you is, when things happen in the media, so for example, when Sideman left and that whole thing with the, you know, them using the M word and things like that, as someone who works for them, you know, and seeing what Sideman did, that was his choice and whatever, how does that kind of work behind the scenes? Like, do all you guys presenters like sit there and go like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, what the fuck did you do that? Could you not have spoke to us about it? Like how does that work? Like, do you guys have conversations, you know, like in-house about things like that, and how you can maybe change things as well?
Well, when Sideman went, nobody knew he was going to go. He didn't speak to anybody before he put that announcement, not even the bosses or the management. So you know, it was very out of the blue for everybody, because nobody even really knew that he was, you know, upset to that degree about it. Obviously you're going to be upset when the N-word goes out on daytime TV said with such chest as well. But from One Extra's point of view, it was just really frustrating, because I think what the public don't necessarily realize, or maybe they do, but they just forget sometimes when they're on social media. But the BBC is, you've touched on it there, is a huge organization, right? It's massive, and that N-word segment actually went out on a regional news story. So it was I think I don't know if this 100%, so apologies if I'm wrong, but it went out on like BBC Bristol or something like that. It was one of the regional kind of news outlets that put that out. So what you've got to remember is those guys are down in their region. They're not even based in the same building as the main news, and also where we are on the 8th floor, right? So there's that. And then kind of, even if it did filter back to London where we're based, it would be the news team that picked that up, who are like it's almost like a completely different company, you know. Like, yes, we'll speak to the news team if they want to speak to us about something, but you know, we're not talking to the people that work in the newsroom daily. I'm definitely not. Presenters definitely aren't. So you know, nobody really knew that it was going to go out, because if somebody would have run it by anybody at One Extra, you know, I'm not even black, and if somebody would have said to me, you know, we're going to run this news bulletin where a white person says the N-word, I'd have been like, you don't want to do that, because that's not the way of approaching it. And I think that's the issue there. You know, you've got this specialist kind of black part of the BBC, which is what One Extra is. It's the only black part of the BBC as well. Let's not forget that. You know, other than some of the language services that are on BBC World Service, One Extra is the only black British part of the BBC. And it frustrates people that, and this goes for people that work in production as well, not just presenters. It frustrates people that the news team, I guess, didn't kind of go, oh, you know what, we should speak to somebody up at One Extra about that, or, you know, we should see if, you know, culturally this is the right thing to do. Because if they did, none of this would have happened. And, you know, I don't know what Sideman would have been doing, but he was on after me on a Saturday, and I know that he used to love being on the radio, and he wanted to be a part of One Extra in the BBC for a long time. But then, you know, that happened, and it was just an issue for him, and he's totally within his rights to do that. You know, I'll never get annoyed or upset about anything, like, especially when it comes to such a big fundamental issue in the world. You know, if he wants to make a stance like that, then I fully back him with it. And to his you know, to big him up as well, he called, don't know if he called every DJ, but he phoned up a lot of the DJs after he put that statement out, because, you know, quite a few of us were getting different comments from different people saying, you know, like, we should walk out and leave as well, and blah blah blah. Which, again, I understand why people will say that kind of thing, but you know, I think what people need to understand slightly with that is, you know, Sideman, I don't know the ins and outs of Sideman's financial situation, but I'm sure like he's doing very well for himself, you know, with his videos and stuff that he's doing like that. Whereas other people are a bit more reliant and dependent on the BBC for, you know, mortgages and rent and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, everybody's situation is different, I guess is what I'm saying. But to answer your question, Sideman, 100% back him, and, you know, big him up for calling around and just making sure everybody was cool and explaining his stance on the situation. And turns out it was the right decision for him anyway, because it's funny how life works out, Joy, isn't it? You know, ever since he left the BBC, a lot of people would have been like, a lot of people could have looked at that and been like, you know, it's massive leaving the BBC like that, but he's absolutely smashing it. You know, last time I spoke to him, he was listening to my show a couple of weeks ago actually, and he texted me, and we were just having a little chat on text, and he said that he's just about to buy a house in Birmingham. He's moved back to Birmingham, and he's in the process of buying a place. So yeah, big him up. I've got time for him. A really, really good guy.
Yeah, he's doing really well. And also, I guess it goes back to the whole thing of, you know what, there's different ways to fight the fight, and different people do it in different ways. At One Extra, are you guys as much of a happy family as you come across to be? Because, I mean, as a listener, I love all the presenters. I've listened for years. I say this all the time. Back in the day when Charlie Sloth was there still, I was actually giving birth to my daughter while he was in the background. You know, I to Dotty all the time, play the A to Z all the time, you know. So do you guys really get along, or is it all of a sudden?
Sloth will absolutely love that if he ever hears you say that. Well, from my point of view, 100%. You know, like there's not one presenter on One Extra who I have an issue with or a problem with or I don't like, or, you know, I wouldn't go and have a drink with when you're allowed to do that kind of thing. You know, like I get on completely with everybody, but I've always tried to be a bit like that anyway in every single job that I've had before I worked in media. Even, you know, nobody wants to work in an atmosphere where it's toxic, or, you know, you don't get on with somebody. Like I said, when it comes to the boss situation earlier, when I was talking about Farron, I guess it's the same for your colleagues. You know, imagine how horrible it would be if, especially on air, you know, where you've got a essentially, and I'm sure there are presenters out there that don't get on with each other. You know, I'm pretty 100% on that. But like for me, yeah, there's nothing worse than like being on air and then having to kind of plug somebody's show and that you hate them or whatever, and it's just I just wouldn't want to get involved with that. But yeah, it's funny you say that, because a lot of people pick up on that. I don't know what it is about One Extra that makes us seem like we're a big happy family more than, say, I don't know, a Capital or a Kiss or whatever. But yeah, we really are. I guess for commercial stations, it's because on air they can't really, you know, commercial stations, the links have to be quite quick, don't they? You know, it's like they get 30 seconds to do a link before they have to hit the ad break or whatever, so they can't really have two ways, you know. Whereas like when my show's coming to an end, or at the start of my show on a Saturday, I always get Remy Bergs, who's obviously new on One Extra. She always comes on, and, you know, we do a Ref or Remy on my show. And like I've always been a bit like that. When Yasmin first started, because, you know, Yasmin's absolutely smashing it now, but Yasmin used to be on Weekend Breakfast, and when she first started, she came down from Manchester, didn't know anybody. So like I used to kind of she would come and sit in with me until 1 o'clock. I'd do my show and we'd chat and blah blah blah, and then, like, you know, we'd just go and get some food and stuff, because, you know, a lot of people only see the glamorous side of being in, for want of a better phrase, show business, and they think, you know, oh, you're on the radio, it must be amazing, blah blah blah. But, you know, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but when Yasmin first started, she was still living in Manchester, so she would come down on a Friday night, get a hotel by herself, come in, do the radio show in the morning, and then, like, if she didn't hang out with me, she would just go back to the hotel room and just like sit there. You know what I mean? Because she's from Manchester, she was young then, she didn't know anyone in London really, and it's like, you know, so that's why I was like, you know, trying to hang out with her. And like on air, we had a really, really good rapport, and that was picked up by a lot of people. And then from then, obviously, she went on to the Breakfast Show with Twin, and, you know, now look, she's absolutely killing it. So yeah, I keep going off on random tangents because that's the kind of guy I am. But like, to answer your question, everybody gets on really, really well. Like from my perspective, anyway. I can't say that 100%. You know, there could be things that I'm not even privy to, but from what I believe, everybody's cool.
Yeah, and no, that's look, I love Yasmin. She's great. She comes across really well again, and I think as well, just going back to what you were saying about commercial radio as well, as I feel like on other stations sometimes it can come across a little bit fake, but I feel like with One Extra it comes across really real. Like all of your personalities seem to, anyway, seems to be very down to earth. Before you got into radio, Nick, did you have any expectations of what it would be like? Because obviously I'm someone who, yes, I'm doing a podcast, but one day my dream is I will have a show on One Extra. I said this to Ace, I'm saying it to you now, speaking it into existence, right? So before you was in it, yeah, did you have any expectations, and has it changed since you've been in it on One Extra?
It's interesting that you say that, because before I got involved with One Extra, I just imagined, I'm sure everybody thinks this as well, I just imagined that it was a non-stop 24/7 party in the office. You know, like I just when you're a listener, because I grew up listening to One Extra. You know, 2002 August is when it launched, and I've been a listener since then. You know, I used to listen to Ace and Viz all the time. They were my favorite show on there. You know, DJ Cameo when he was on Richie Vibe V. You know, I was a fan. So like I had this idea of what it would be like, and I remember the very first time I went to the One Extra offices. We're not even in that building anymore. We're in New Broadcasting House now. But
yeah,
a mate of mine, he was working at Radio 1, and he said to me one Friday night, he was working on like Judge Jules or one of the dance shows, and he said to me one Friday night, do you want to come in and just have a look? And I'm obviously gassed. I'm like, yeah, like flipping hell, 100%. Then I remember walking around the studios and just being like massively underwhelmed, because the old building is different now. If you come to One Extra and Radio 1 now, the studios are much more glossy. It's on the top floor. It's in the big, when you watch BBC News, you know, that big glass building that they show in the news. We're like in there, the top. It's much better. The old building was only around the corner, but it was literally just like a random building. If you walked past it, you wouldn't even know a radio station or two radio stations were in there. And I just remember thinking, man, this is nowhere near what I thought it was going to be. And then kind of that didn't deter me, though. Believe me, I was still desperate to get a job at One Extra. And then when I finally did get a job there, and I was kind of in the building when presenters were on air, and I was in the studio and stuff like that, that's when it kind of got a little bit more surreal for me, because like I said, I grew up listening to these guys, man. And when you're in that studio, when the magic is happening, it's just like, this is mad. The biggest moment for me that I had, or the exact moment, I guess, that happened to me, is when I worked with Trevor Nelson for the first time. Because like Trevor is somebody who, you know,
we love
it's mad.
Uncle Trev.
Well, it's like Trevor's like a mate now, you know what I mean? I can ring him up anytime, and it's like absolutely nuts to me still when I think about that, because like I literally grew up watching Trevor. He was on the Lick on MTV before One Extra even existed. You know, he was on Radio 1, Pirate Kiss. I grew up listening to this guy. And then when I was in the building working on, he used to do the breakfast show with Xena, who used to be in Mystique, and they did the breakfast show together. And I worked on the show, and I was just like, that's an actual legend, like sitting right there, and he's just like chatting to me about music. And I just felt like I felt very lucky at that moment to be there. And then, you know, the journey since then has just been, it's mad. But as humans, Joy, you know what we're like. You know, you sometimes when you're in something, you don't necessarily realize how amazing it is, or realize kind of the incredible nature of the situation that you're in. I guess we end up getting something, it becomes the norm, you know, and then we're like, oh, what else can I get? You know, I'm looking for the next thing, you know, and that's cool. You do need to look for the next thing, but equally you need to sometimes just, you need to sometimes just like sit back take a deep breath and take stock of like your life and what's happening in it and what you're grateful for, because I won't be on One Extra forever. I've been there for a long time now. I don't know how much longer I've got there, if I'm honest. And
Yeah.
that's not me saying I'm going to get sacked next week or anything, but you just, what I'm saying is you just don't know. So I want to look back at this time and think that's amazing. That's the station that I grew up as a fan of, and I actually managed to make it on air, which is still nuts to me.